All right, hello everybody. I'm just gonna give everyone a second here. Please make sure to mute yourself. Make sure I'm all set on my end. All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's so good to see a couple familiar names here. I'm really excited to be chatting with you guys today about a topic that is really important to me as a dietitian, and for multiple reasons. I work, one thing is that I volunteer with a cancer survivorship group. I've unfortunately have had many of my own family members and dear family members and friends affected by cancer. Diet plays a huge role in cancer, which we're going to talk about today. And it's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is why I ultimately am doing it this month, and which is why you'll see a lot of pink on the slides today. So I'm going to hop right on in so I make sure we have enough time to cover everything. I have a lot of information for you guys, so I'm going to get started. So a little bit about me. Again, I see some familiar faces here, but my name is Allie Tallman. We are going to be talking about preventing cancer with nutrition today. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm the founder of Nourished Roots, which is a nutrition consulting company. We're going to be chatting about all things cancer, preventing cancer today. If you guys do have questions, I will be taking them at the end, so feel free to let me know then. You can always put comments and things in the chat box as well. I help individuals feel freedom from dieting. I help them to build a healthy relationship with food, help them to feel confident in their food choices, to understand nutrition and feel less confused, and also to feel less stressed. This is my website, which I always like to point out. It's Nourished Roots, which is spelled like the word routes.com. Because there is a whole recipe section right here. I know so many of you guys are always asking for recipes, so I always like to make sure I point that out to you. There's a lot of like easy, less than 30-minute recipes for you guys. And we are going to dive right on in. So make sure you guys stick around to the end of the presentation so that we have the opportunity to ask questions, make sure you guys get them answered. So most people here probably know what cancer is, or you've heard cancer, or maybe you've been affected by cancer. But it's really when some of your body's cells grow uncontrollably. So that's really what you want to think of it as, is that our body doesn't have the ability to control them versus normal cells. There's this whole process in place. So those damaged cells, they can actually create a tumor, which is a mass of tissue. So it is a genetic disease. So genes in our DNA control the way our cells function. There are things that can change our genetic, are the chances, I should say, or can lead to cancer. So errors during cell division, damage to DNA, such as eating the wrong things or ingesting certain chemicals, inheriting this DNA from our parents. Some facts about cancer for you guys. So there's actually a portion of cancers that are preventable. But unfortunately, I will say here that some types, and not all cancers, are preventable. A lot are unfortunately due to genetics. Treatment for cancer includes things like surgery, chemo, radiation. I actually used to work in a cancer clinic when I first started my career as a dietitian. So I know there's a lot of changes that go on with chemo and things like that. As I mentioned, we're talking today about breast cancer. We're doing this because of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their life. And this is just a fact for you guys. A lot of people think like the disease causes hair loss, but it's actually chemo. If you are getting chemo, it can cause your hair to fall out as a side effect. All right, we're going to dive now into the exciting part, which is nutrition. So my expertise. So you can reduce your risk of certain cancers by maintaining a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. Many cancers are linked to certain behaviors, and the American Cancer Society states that maintaining a healthy weight, staying physically active throughout the life, and consuming a healthy diet can reduce your risk. So these are some of the guidelines more specifically. So you want to aim to achieve and maintain a healthy lifestyle throughout your life, be physically active, consume a healthy diet, And if you drink alcoholic beverages, do so in moderation. So how to live a healthy life. So it's all about balance. If you guys know me, you know that I'm not about dieting. I'm not about avoiding like cheese or alcohol totally or things like that. It's really about a balance, and what you do majority of the time that matters. So overall, you want to make sure you're eating, and we're going to go way more specifically into these things, but you want to make sure you're eating a diet rich in plant foods like fruits and veggies, balanced with whole grains and lean meats. Do some physical activity, no matter what it is. We'll go into that, and work with a dietitian or healthcare provider to help you. So this is what we're going to talk about more specifically today. So I always recommend eating red and processed meats in moderation, increasing fruits, veggies, and whole grains, maintaining or achieving a healthy lifestyle, limiting added sugars and saturated fat, focusing on plant-based proteins, and avoiding or limiting alcohol consumption. So I'm going to let this sit here. We are going to go fully into all these things, which is why I'm going a little bit quicker to make sure we have time for them, but I'll let this sit here for you guys. So the first one is processed meats. So processed meats are things like hot dogs, ham, bacon. These have been strongly linked to certain types of cancer, and especially colon cancer. So you can eat these foods. I'm not saying you can never eat them, but enjoy these foods in smaller portions. Fill majority of your plate with veggies and whole grains, and maybe eat these less often. People always ask me like, well, how much should I be eating? It really depends on the person. So if you're currently eating it every day, I always say like, okay, well, let's talk about changing it to every other day. Or if you're eating it once a week, what about every other week? I recommend limiting it to at least once per week if you're going to eat it. However, even better than that would be like once a month, for example. Processed meats include beef, lamb, pork, hamburger. And when you're thinking of red meat specifically, nitrates is a component that is in red meat that has been strongly linked to increased cancer risk, especially colon cancer, like I mentioned earlier. So instead of eating more of this nitrates, which comes from red meat, focusing on other sources of protein can be beneficial for cancer prevention. So focusing on leaner proteins such as chicken, fish, turkey. You can do plant-based things like chickpeas, black beans, etc. And here's just one study that I wanted to bring up to show you guys. This looked at nitrates in certain foods and cancer risk, and those who ate more nitrates had increased risk of cancer. So the outcome of this study was making sure that you are, or telling you to eat less nitrates, so essentially eat less red meat. Actually, I'd like to go back here too. I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat box. Do you eat red meat? And I'm not saying that you can never eat red meat. That's not my goal here, but I would love to hear from you guys. If you eat red meat, how often you eat red meat, if you avoid red meat. I'd love to just hear from you guys. So if you could put in the chat box, you can feel free to direct message me if you don't want to share with the group as well. See someone message me saying every other week. Said hamburgers over the summer, totally fine. I love a good hamburger occasionally myself. Right, thank you to those of you who shared. Let's see. I prefer chicken or fish, so it's not an issue, maybe once a month. So good, we have some good healthy eaters here in terms of meat. I love it. Instead of thinking of what to take away, so less red meat, you really want to focus more on fruits and veggies. So the research shows that higher intake of veggies, fruits, and whole grains is associated with lower risk of cancer. So you want to aim to make, when people say like how much, aim to make half your plate fruits and veggies, and half your grain intake, so half your carb intake, be whole grains or complex carbs. So that's things like quinoa or oats, for example. I do recommend aiming to have 3 to 5 cups of vegetables per day and 2 cups of fruit per day. Not that you're measuring. I don't want anybody here to think they have to measure their food out. Just visually think of like, a cup of berries or something. So find ways to include more fruits and veggies. Fruits make a good snack or sweet treat to end the day, and veggies don't have to just be a salad. You can sneak them into a smoothie, you could put it in a stir fry, you could put it in tacos. There's lots of different things that you could try. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat box. Do you think you eat enough fruits and veggies? So put it in the chat box. Could do better. I've gone crazy with lunch salads. So yeah, good. That's awesome that you are eating enough. One fun fact about fruits and veggies too is that most men and women in the United States don't eat enough fiber, which comes in things like fruits and veggies. So I think a lot of us here could likely do better. Added sugar and saturated fat is the next thing I want to cover. So added sugars and solid fats are foods that provide a lot of calories, and there's actually really little nutritional value in them. You want to limit your saturated fat to less than 10% of your total calories per day. And you want to limit your added sugar to less than 22 grams of added sugar per day. So I like to show this right here. So you can see saturated fat on this label. I always say, so if you look at the percent daily value, like the less this number, the better, because you want less of it. So you want to aim to reduce your saturated fat. Now on the nutrition label, there will be something under total sugars, and total sugars are not a bad thing actually, because that can include natural sugars. You want to make sure you're looking at added sugars, which will tell you, is it above 22 grams, for example? So making sure you're limiting both of those. Things that have added sugar, like candy, juices, a lot of condiments like salad dressings, desserts, a lot of dairy products, like yogurt, for example. That's something that I look at with my clients. And then saturated fat is going to be found in animal products. So it's going to be things like dairy, meat, butter, cheese, cured meats, even like biscuits, because they're made with a good amount of butter. So anything that's like dairy or meat, so animal based, you can think of it being likely high in saturated fat. I'm not saying you can never eat dairy or never eat meat. It's just making sure you're choosing the lower fat options. And something you could do, which is going to be less of that saturated fat, is replacing more sources of the animal protein with plant-based proteins. And if you're someone who's like, I'm a huge meat eater, my husband, my spouse, whoever would never be on board with that, try like one meatless meal per week and see how it goes. You could try tofu, beans, lentils, tempeh. They provide a ton of good nutritional value, especially that fiber that a lot of us are missing in our diet. There's also iron, potassium, lots of other good things. So I always recommend making like one meal a day meatless if you are a huge meat eater. And one thing that I love, like a trendy little thing that so you remind yourself, is doing like Meatless Monday. That could be really cool for you to try because you are challenging yourself. You'll find new recipes. In order to do this successfully without dreading it, I recommend finding a recipe that really excites you. And if you don't know how to cook something, if you don't know how to cook tofu, YouTube is like your best friend because there will be examples of how to cook that item. So artificial sweeteners are next. So this is another thing I get asked about a lot now. So a study came out, as you can see down here. I don't think it says the year here, but this study came out earlier in 2022. It was a huge study. It was looking at over 10,000 participants. So very good population. And it showed that artificial sweeteners are strongly linked to cancer. And that doesn't mean you can't have your one Splenda that you have each day. It's people who have multiple Splenda. They have a lot of diet Cokes, a lot of products that use artificial sweeteners. So I do recommend to you guys to limit those. My favorite thing to use instead of artificial sweetener is actually like honey. Honey has probiotics in it and it will sweeten whatever you are eating or drinking. Alcohol consumption. So alcohol is a major factor in cancer risk. Studies show that even moderate alcohol intake can increase risk of developing cancer over no alcohol at all. So not that you should never have it. I'm all about, living your life and enjoying it, but maybe not having it every night. And if you find that you are having it, finding other ways to fill that time or fill that gap. It could be a mocktail, it could be going for a walk, stretching, playing with your dog or kids, whatever it is, finding something that will use up that time. And then we have exercise here next. So finding movement that you find joyful is so important. Exercise is really great for physical health, mental health, emotional health. It could also prevent diseases such as cancer. So making sure that you are finding something that you find joyful and doing it regularly. And if you're doing like yoga once a week, but then you're walking other days and you're going for a hike the other day, it doesn't need to be the same thing on repeat, but you should aim for at least 30 minutes a day. And it could be something that is as simple as like going for a walk with your dog. Really, the big picture with this is that you want to focus more on moving more and sitting less. And I know a lot of us, as we're all sitting here at our computers now, we tend to sit a lot, for work, on the couch, watching TV, whatever it is, finding ways to exercise that you actually find enjoyable. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat box. What are some things that you find truly enjoyable? So it can be yoga, it can be kayaking in the summer, hiking, playing with your dog, gardening. What is something a movement that you find truly enjoyable that you don't dread? And an example of something that you dread is, for example, a runner or someone who hates running, who is trying to run, but they hate it. They're less likely to stick with it if they truly hate it. So I'd love to hear from you guys what exercises you are loving right now. Someone said cycling. I love cycling too. Rewatching X-Files while on the treadmill. I love that so much. If you're someone who doesn't have time to work out in the morning, even working out in the evening while watching your favorite TV show can be great. So just walking on a treadmill or on a stationary bike. Someone else said they like going for walks or doing yoga. That's also really amazing. If you are someone who doesn't even know where to get started, just going for walks. I think walking is really great. I'm also limited, but I like doing fluid movement in the pool. That's really great as well. There are a lot of things that you can do at home if you're not super limited to help with your workouts as well. So a little summary before we take questions. So again, not all cancers are going to be preventable. I wish they were, obviously, but there are certain lifestyle and behavior modifications you can do to reduce your risk of cancer. And you can eat all the foods we've talked about in here. Another thing that is not in here that you could do, drinking enough water, making sure you're drinking 8 glasses a day, is another thing that I would really recommend. So taking the steps, thinking of, okay, am I having enough of the fiber, the fruits and veggies, things like that. So I would say thinking of those things. So for your next steps, so if you're not sure how much protein, carbs, et cetera, your body needs, so if you're really unclear of what your body needs, if you're wondering if you're eating the right foods to prevent cancer and other diseases, if you're confused on how to apply any of this information to your life, maybe it's just like, okay, well, what do I do? If you don't know how to read a nutrition label, obviously I gave that nutrition label earlier, but a lot of the things, there's total fat, there's the total sugar section. And if you want to feel confident in your food choices, understand what to eat and how much to eat, as well as no longer let food overwhelm you, then I do have something to share with you guys. It's called Your Nourished Route. And again, I will be taking questions right after this as well. So Your Nourished Route is a 4 weeks, totally self-paced program designed to build your own foundation of nutrition, create confidence in what and how to eat, and generate an effortless system that will get you on track. It will help you to prevent cancer. There's educational video modules, educational resources, downloadable worksheets, goal setting prompts, a ton of recipes. So you can eat all these great recipes that don't take a ton of time to create. And this is for you if you feel like you don't have the time or energy to research on your own, or maybe you're sick of like trying things that don't work. You feel like you're wasting your mental energy, always wondering what to eat. You feel defeated and stuck, and you don't have any consistent eating habits. Those are just what some people have said currently. The course is amazing. I'm also so excited that I get access to this course forever, which is a point to bring up. I'm constantly adding new material to it, so you'll always get access to those things. I feel way less stressed and confused. Allie brings you the necessary steps to reach your goals in this course and gives so much information. So I will put the link in here, but I will take questions from you guys. And one thing to note too is if you came late or anything like that, then you will have, this will be sent out to your email afterwards. Make sure you always check your spam box. Some emails tend to go to people's spam boxes, so I want to let you guys know that. So someone messaged me, I want to put the link here. Someone messaged me saying, what about sleeping? So sleep does have, that's a very good question. Sleep has such a strong connection to cancer as well. I was actually earlier today looking up a study about cancer risk and sleep. Those who are chronically sleep deprived, so people who get like on average less than like 6 hours a night, they are at increased risk of cancer. So the more sleep, the better. So thinking of that, you want more sleep, you want to be drinking plenty of water, moving your body and eating right. Those are all some really great things. Anyone else?
Hi, this is David. I have a question, please.
Hi, yes.
First of all, thanks for the presentation. All good points. I appreciate it. As a cancer patient, I get a lot of advice from people that probably don't have any business giving me advice on nutrition. And I'm curious about a couple of things. One is, you know, that sugar, I know the issues with sugar, but people tell me that the sugar actually feeds tumors, and I can find no data to actually support that, except maybe in vitro, but certainly not in the human body. And the other thing is to keep an alkaline body. And again, I can find no data to support that you can actually change the pH in your blood to begin with. So I just was curious as to your thoughts on those two things.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So both of those are not proven by research. So I do not recommend them. When I used to work in a cancer clinic, I did a lot of research on those different things. And I don't know where they got started from. Almost they're basically a fad or a trend or, you know, kind of a rumor that goes around. There is research that shows that cancer is not caused or that carbs do not feed cancer. So there's research against that. There's no research showing that sugar does feed cancer. So for cancer patients, I recommend, for those with cancer or in remission, I recommend, like anybody here, to focus more on complex carbs and whole grains, and just make sure you're eating more of those than the simple sugars that come in like cookies and cakes. And that's I would recommend it to anybody, but that's really important to think about.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the alkaline question, same thing. There's no evidence to support it. So I don't think I would not recommend, you know, doing that for sure. Someone else asked, does a course define specific vitamins in food and how they help / affect the body. Yes, they do. So we go into in the course, we go into things like specific nutrients. We go into what carbs you should be eating, what fat you should be eating. There is a breakdown on that link that I put in terms of what to look for. Also, like I mentioned, for that self-paced course, I'm always adding new material to it. So if you join now, you'll always get access to be able to log in and see that info. And I anticipate the price will be going up in the future, and you will never, once you pay, you're in type of thing. So you will get that information, long story short. Good. I'm excited to see you in there, Jeanette. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, I will be sending this out, the replay, in case you missed it or in case you had to arrive late. So I will be sending that out. Again, please check your spam though, because it goes there sometimes. I don't know why, and people look for it. But I wanted to thank all of you guys for joining me today on this Wednesday. I appreciate all of you guys. If you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out at info@nourished roots.com. And I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you.